Good morning and welcome to Gen Taub Live. We are not messing around here. We are asking a question that is really on everyone's mind. Like, even for people who have focused on Donald Trump's depravity and his corruption over the years, for some of us, something new is coming together. And it's the realization that Donald Trump is not just a creep and he is not just an adjudicated rapist, essentially a sex abuser under New York law. He's not just a convicted felon. He's not just a white supremacist, sexist, racist idiot. It's dawning on us that something even worse is part of the mix. And that is the question that we need to know the answer of, which is Donald Trump just like Jeff Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Is Donald Trump a child sex abuser? Did he, as the allegations against him suggest, did he not just molest and assault adult women, but did he do the same thing to children, to young girls who he knew were under 18 or who he should have known? And that is the question we are asking. And I am asking that question in particular because of the strenuous way Donald Trump is trying to cover up the Jeff Epstein files. And so, as you know, yesterday, we started going through a timeline that I was building toward answering the question of whether Donald Trump could himself be a child sex predator. Did Donald Trump, as the allegations suggest, from the pseudonymous Katie Johnson, not just an allegation, but something she filed in federal court, did Donald Trump rape a 13-year-old girl several times, including, as described, at the same time at Jeffrey Epstein's mansion just down the block from Donald Trump's home? Did that happen or not? That's one thing we want to know. And secondly, we also want to know whether Michael Wolff, who interviewed Jeff Epstein, is correct in that there are, as he said, Polaroid photographs, many of them that were in Jeff Epstein's safe that he said he saw, that included Donald Trump with, girls, young girls of who knows what age, who were topless sitting on his lap, and in one photo pointing at his crotch, which was stained, and laughing. These are photos that Michael Wolff said he had. Now, you take these two things and you can say, well, these are just allegations, have not been proven in a court of law. We don't know if those were doctored photos. There's a lot we don't know. But what I'm going to share with you today is two-part. First is some more factual context, and second is some legal context. First of all, given more of the timeline that I have built out, it seems impossible that Donald Trump, who was best friends with Jeff Epstein and seen with him countless times over a 15-year period, roughly, it seems impossible that if he went to Jeff's homes, either in Florida, where he did live just under 2 miles down the road, or just blocks away in New York, it seems impossible that Donald Trump would not have seen naked underage girls or young girls of dubious age. There's no question that he would have seen them, and we're going to build that out. And he's admitted that Jeff Epstein liked young women, as he put it, but these were girls. And there's also no doubt that Donald Trump understood that Jeffrey Epstein's modeling agency with a guy named Jean-Luc Brunel, there's no doubt that Donald Trump understood that the purpose of that was to recruit girls under the age of 18 from Eastern Europe to come to either the United States, mainland United States, or to the U.S. Virgin Islands, or to his own private island right near the U.S. Virgin Islands, or elsewhere, in homes in Europe, and so on. There's no question Donald understood the pipeline that recruiting these young models, quote unquote, from Eastern Europe provided a supply. And I know that he would have known that because he was around him and he had his own modeling agency. So it seems quite likely that, I shouldn't say I know, it would be unlikely that he would not have known that. Not only that, I'm not sure if you realize this, but Jean-Luc Brunel was connected, as I mentioned, to Epstein to provide him with over, as we've seen in the allegations, 1,000 girls and young women to prostitute or rape, and for all of them traffic. And we know that, but I don't know if you realize this, but one of the women that young women, she was a girl when she was first abducted, Virginia Giuffre, Virginia Giuffre alleged that Jean-Luc Brunel had also raped her. So I just want to make this clear. I don't know if you know that there's this connection, right? That there is this modeling agency. I haven't put Donald Trump in here yet. I just want to give you this context for what Jeff Epstein's homes would have been like. I'm not sure if you followed this, but he was arrested in France right around the time that Jeff Epstein was also imprisoned, or right around the time, I should actually say, that Ghislaine Maxwell was. And just wanted to make clear to you, I guess I just say this to you. I wonder if you can guess what happened to Jean-Luc Brunel while he was in prison. I think it was around, just going to share this with you. Sorry. I've got this. I want to share this slide so you know what happened to him. He, in prison, quote unquote, committed suicide by hanging himself. So I feel like what I want to do for today's show, I've got some real other news, some crazy stuff going on that Donald Trump is doing to harm us all, and some other ridiculous, real crazy town. But what I want to do today is what I promised to you. And this is, hold on, I'm getting back to my slides. This is to provide the factual context, part one. And the part two that I want to mention is to start to zero in on the state criminal laws that could be used against Donald Trump if anyone cared to actually investigate him. And I just want to add a cautionary tale here. There might be people who think, why in the world would someone get away with something like this for years and years? Well, you can ask yourself, why did Donald Trump get away for years and years with criminal behavior and never get charged for it until much later in his adulthood? And this goes to one of the concepts. Just want to show my book, Big Dirty Money. This was published in 2020 with the paperback came out in 2021. I recommend the paperback because it has some updates from the Trump administration at that time. I mean, in other words, when the 2020 book came out, I didn't have as much information. When I get to 2021, this book, when it came out, I was able to cover details around the insurrection and so on. So in Big Dirty Money, I suggest that it's a whole racket, that the wealthy and well-connected are protected for far too long for their financial misdeeds as well as other depravity, and it's not surprising to me. Okay. Oh, thank you so much, AJ. You're very sweet. So I'm only promoting this because I'm going to be talking about some things in here. I'm also going to be talking today a little bit when we go through the timeline, something from E. Jean Carroll's book, Not My Type. Okay, but let's just get into it. So again, I want to start with the timeline because I was actually up to like 3 a.m. adding information to it. And let me just tell you, this is not like like I'm not behaving like a prosecutor and pulling together evidence under, oath, etc. I am pulling from the public domain information, and I am using Google Slides so that I can keep the chronology in order in my mind and juxtapose different concepts. This is by no means going to be fully complete. It's trying to, at this point, paint a picture and raise enough questions as to whether an investigation should have been or could still take place. And especially, I mentioned under New York state law, because so far, the Manhattan DA is still an honest person and has not been replaced by any kind of Trump lackey. Okay, which seems unlikely. That is a position that is voted on, and Tish James has done an amazing job. So let's do this, right? And for those of you who were not here yesterday, if you weren't here yesterday, I'm encouraging you to click that subscribe button, click the bell so you don't miss an episode. We're going to keep building and building. Right now, I've been doing this show on my own network for a year and a couple of weeks. So I'm almost at my 1-year anniversary. Unbelievably, for somebody who doesn't have a big name, didn't have a television show, thanks to you guys, we are at almost 10,000 people. Now, I swear to you, we are going to grow this community because right here, you and I are doing something people are afraid to do, but it's going to blossom. It's going to blossom because there are people who are writers or producers for much larger shows who go through, it's called scrubbing. They'll go through people like me, see what we talk about, and start to pick up on it. So I'm hoping this spreads. Let's start. Okay, so we're going to start with the timeline that is answering this question from today's thumbnail, which is, were they a team? Was Jeff Epstein a team? Was the secret they had together that they were a team that together would cover for each other in the process of preying on, including young women and children? They had a lot in common in that capacity. So let's just add one more thing before we begin. Donald Trump. Oh, there's another question people ask is, like, if he was so neck deep in this disgusting behavior, why would he have promised to release the Epstein files? Doesn't that seem self-defeating? Well, guys, this is what Donald Trump always does. If there's something someone wants that has value, like a kind of currency, he'll promise to give it. He'll promise to give you something to get you off his back. He'll promise to give you something to get you to do something. That is the Trump way. And Donald Trump promised a lot of things. He hired people to work for them. He didn't pay them. He promised to speak to Robert Mueller and sit down with him. He never did. He promised to share his tax returns with the public. He didn't. There's so many things. He promised. He took vows in 3 weddings and promised to be faithful to his wives. He never was. And so just to keep it clear, Donald Trump's MO is to cheat and to lie. And I consider cover-ups to be part of the lies. He cheats and he lies. He cheats on his wives and lied to his wives. He cheats in golf. He still does, and lies about his record. He has cheated in business over and over, including the creditors who suffer from his, I think it's 6 business bankruptcies. He lies. He lied in his charity, right? One of his businesses, I almost forgot, in 2022 was actually found guilty for tax evasion. Remember that Alan Weisselberg was convicted first, and he was in prison. And then when later he was accused, he refused to testify. And I think did he go back to prison again? Anyhow, Donald Trump's business was convicted. His charity was dismantled for cheating and lying, right? And in office, he cheats and lies around the Constitution. This is who he is. So I know that you cannot build a case based on, well, he's a cheater and a liar, so he must be a child rapist. Those things don't go together. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is it's perfectly in line for Donald Trump, if he's caught doing something or he knows what he's doing is wrong, to lie about it. Okay? So I just want to give you that time frame. The second thing I want to say is people who are prosecutors, investigators, think about, and I never was one, okay? People somehow think I was a federal prosecutor. I wasn't. I represented businesses. I worked for a company I think you all know, where the senior management later, went to prison. But that's all. I talk about that in the acknowledgments in Big Dirty Money. But what prosecutors talk about when they think about a suspect in a crime, or what law enforcement does, is two things. Do they have a motive, and do they have an opportunity? So, one, does Donald Trump have a motive to knowingly or recklessly engage in sexual activity with teenage girls? Does he have a motive to do that? That's question one. Question two is, did he have the opportunity? I think the answer is yes to both. I think the answer is yes to both. And then the next question is, did he? And we're going to go through the Katie Johnson complaint today so we can look at the statutes. Remember, her complaint was under civil lawsuit against him for damages, but it encapsulates and discusses the New York state law. So we're going to start there. But first, let's go to the timeline. You guys with me? And for those of you who were here yesterday, you're going to see some similar slides because it's part of the timeline, but I'm not going to say the exact same thing. For the ones we've talked about, I'll just kind of go through. I just believe that it's important to do this because there are things that we're like, oh my God, I just found that out. And it turns out it was in news for years and we just didn't put it together. Okay, let's go. Timeline. Again, we're building the case. Did Donald Trump have the motive? Did he have the opportunity to engage in child rape? Did he have the motive and the opportunity? That's what we're looking at. And we're separately saying is there evidence that he did? Let's go. Okay. So Donald Trump has been freaking out, as you know, because he cannot understand, as he says, I don't understand it, why they would be so interested. He's dead for a long time. He was never a big factor in terms of life. This timeline is going to show you how much Epstein was a big factor in terms of life. It's also going to show you, weave in, how Donald Trump, from the time he was a young man until now, has engaged in self-aggrandizing lying and cheating, right? We talked about that. I'm not doing all of his lying and cheating. I'm just weaving it in to create the foundation and tell the story. Okay, so let's start with this. Donald Trump graduated from Wharton in 1968 at age 22. As you probably know, he did not start there. He started at Fordham. And then, according to his niece, Mary Trump, from conversations that she had with her aunt, Donald Trump had someone take the SAT for him so he could actually transfer into Wharton. Donald Trump has been lying about his experience at Wharton for decades. In articles in the 80s, there were these stories that he was feeding to the press that he was the top, that he graduated first in his class from Wharton. Not only did he cheat to get in, but he lies about his performance there. And I want to share this with you. This is, I sourced this from the news. And the question is, I wish I had the site to this article, but it's a screenshot. I will bring it later. So it says mystery number 2. This is an article about Donald's experience at Wharton. Mystery 2. Did one of his Wharton professors repeatedly tell friends and associates that Donald Trump was the dumbest goddamn student I ever had? So in this article, the response is, it's rare for a professor to disparage the intelligence of a student. But according to attorney Frank DePrima, who was close friends with Professor William T. Kelly for 47 years, the prof made an exception for Donald Trump, at least in private. He must have told me that 100 times over the course of 30 years, said DePrima, who has been practicing law since 1963. He said, I remember the inflection of his voice when he said it. Donald Trump was the dumbest goddamn student I ever had, he would say. He would say that Trump came to Wharton thinking he already knew everything, that he was arrogant, and he wasn't there to learn. Kelly, who passed away in 2011, taught marketing at Wharton for 31 years. He retired in 1982. So by then, he had a frame of reference. So this is Donald Trump. I'm only starting in his young adulthood. Okay, what happened next? You may know, again, I'm going to get to the child sex abuse. I'm just giving you context. In 1973, Donald was working for his father at Trump Management, Inc., and it was accused of being like the first company to violate the Fair Housing Act. And Donald Trump made all these kinds of denials, but they ultimately settled the case in 1975 after hiring one of the worst people in the world, Roy Cohn, as you know, to represent him. He denied. Ultimately, they settled. Donald acted like it was no big deal. It was a massive settlement. I've looked into it. He said he did not have to admit liability, so they didn't do anything wrong. Untrue. Okay, what happens next? Again, I'm going to start to zero in on the personal stuff. When Donald was 31, he meets and marries Ivana, Eastern European, who had been in Canada as a professional skier. So this is them. And this was the perfect time for him to meet her, because this is when his real estate career takes off. So right around that time, I'm going to bring Jeff Epstein. Well, Donald and Ivana were dating and getting married, very short time frame. What was Jeff Epstein doing? Like, how did their paths begin to cross? Well, Jeff Epstein was, at age 21, as you, I'm sure, know, teaching. He was hired without a college degree to teach math and science at Dalton Academy, a very prestigious preparatory academy in New York, without a college degree. This is quite shocking to me. I went to a private school in Michigan, and most of our teachers, a lot of them had masters. Some of them had PhDs. I have not heard of someone teaching without even a BS or BA at one of these prestigious schools. However, he was hired, and I think you know this, by William Barr's father, who was the headmaster of the school. And he gets hired right before the fall 1974 year, like in the spring, right when Barr is leaving. Now, there's a whole story about Epstein being there. He was there 2 years. He looks really creepy in this photo. There are a lot of allegations against him that he acted inappropriately around female students. And here's just one excerpt. It says, another student who also requested anonymity, fearing reprisals from Mr. Epstein, recalled seeing Mr. Epstein at a high school party in an apartment on the Upper East Side, where students were drinking and socializing. Mr. Epstein was the only teacher there, which raised eyebrows among the students. I cannot imagine a high school teacher going to a party drinking with underage kids. They couldn't even drink alcohol and with his students. Beyond creepy. It's creepy for, I think, college professors to do it, and law school professors. I don't go to parties with my students. Anyway, okay. So this is what Jeff Epstein is doing. Again, this is 1976. So I just and sorry, he finishes there. They ask him to leave. So just to be clear, that's what's happening in Epstein's life. They ask him to leave. Meanwhile, Donald, even though he is newly married, is already has no qualms, according to Jessica Leeds, on trying to kiss and actually sexually assaulting a young woman on an airplane. This is what happened to Jessica Leeds. She said this is a picture of Jessica in the time frame when Donald Trump, she alleges, and she testified under oath that this happened to her. She didn't sue Donald, but I believe it was her testimony. It was at Eugene's trial. So obviously, juries took it seriously. So Donald Trump is doing this. So what does this tell you? This kind of goes to, for me, to motive and opportunity. One reason why a man might not have sexual relationships with teenage girls, rape them, essentially is what we call it, because statutory rape. One reason why they might not do that, or even with 20-year-olds who are, 18 and above, let's say, is because, people like to be faithful to their spouses. Donald was barely married. So in terms of motive, there's no obstacle in terms of if he perceived it as being acceptable based on fidelity. Oh my God. Thank you, Gail Tabbitt. You're incredible. Okay. So let's go. So that happened in 78. Now let's weave in more of Donald's lies, more of his cheating and lies, right? This is cheating and he's lied about it. Beginning in 1980, and it goes all the way through beyond the 90s, Donald Trump was in repeated legal trouble. Now, this is something this is a follow the money story. It's in the intro of Big Dirty Money, very well documented. There are footnotes in the back of the book. But basically, beginning in the 80s, his businesses were in a lot of legal trouble. This includes with the Federal Trade Commission, with the New Jersey Casino Control Commission, with the Securities and Exchange Commission, with FinCEN, which is part of Treasury, with the IRS. I could go on. And there are numerous, which I've documented here, settlements and he entered into. The one you see here, and I raise this now, the settlement, was more than one, but there was, I'm thinking about this is the Taj Mahal, a photo of the Taj Mahal casino. And this article notes, this is one of the casinos that Trump's businesses owned, that it was a money laundering operation shortly after it opened. Money laundering. That means, and casinos are good for that because cash comes in, people get chips, etc. Then they play, or they walk out, they cash, or whatever. There's all. I don't want to. There were all kinds of things he did at the casino besides run it into the ground, but the allegation it was a money laundering operation. So I just want to lay that out for you because Jeff Epstein has also been accused of money laundering. Okay, cheating. So let me get to, you've seen this before. This is 10 years after he's married. He's got these young kids with Ivana. That relationship falls apart in part, right? This is a nice picture of 87. Within 2 years of the photo, it becomes public that Donald's having an affair with Marla Maples, a younger version of Ivana. She was 26 in this photo. The women never age, right? He keeps dating younger women. So this is a younger version. She's even younger than Ivana was when they met. So that becomes public. Now, I'm adding something you have not seen. This is a critical piece. This is a piece linking Donald Trump to Ghislaine Maxwell and her father. Donald Trump, and I think you might already know this, knew Ghislaine's father and her, most likely, because of this before Ghislaine even met Jeff Epstein. Donald has thick ties to him. So I want to share this. This is a screenshot from a newspaper reporting about a party on Maxwell's yacht. As you may know, his yacht was named Lady Ghislaine after his daughter. Let me read this to you. It's called, the headline is like a little gossipy column, On Their Toes. One thing about the party aboard British media mogul Robert Maxwell's yacht, everybody but their shoes before boarding the plush carpeted Lady Ghislaine. Maxwell insisted and his guests cooperated, including Donald Trump minus Ivana. That's in parens, right? By then that was kind of a little dig, right? Because by then he was cheating on her. Donald Trump minus Ivana, who has a much bigger yacht and was happy to compare them with Maxwell. So Donald Trump took off his shoes, but was comparing his bigger yacht. Guests sipped champagne, nibbled caviar flown in from Paris on the Concorde, and salmon served from the vessel's stores by shoeless waiters. There was John Tower, former senator and thumb-down defense secretary, ex-Navy Secretary John Lehman, now with Payne Weber, lawyer Tom Boland, literary agent Mort Jenklow, UN envoy, and it goes on and on for these people. Owner of the New York Post was there, Peter Kalikoff. Maxwell's daughter, Ghislaine, and Max's niece, Helene Atkin of Macmillan, the publishing house that he recently took over. So she was there. Just to say, Ghislaine Maxwell was at this party, and so was Donald Trump. This is 1989. Maxwell, who weighs about 300 pounds, went over the guest list personally. Okay. So Donald Trump was close enough with Robert Maxwell, who was a media magnate, owned several newspapers, including in the U.S. I think he even sent a couple of years later Ghislaine over to try to manage that. Donald Trump was close enough with Robert Maxwell that he was one of the elite guests invited to dine on his yacht. And when they say that things were caviar or what have you was flown in from Paris, it's not clear to me whether this was the yacht was in England, off the coast of, if it was in the British Isles that time or if it was in the US. It sounds like it was in England, but he was close enough to get that invitation. And we know they were both at that same event. Okay. So you know this, right? Now, what you may also know is Robert Maxwell had very strange ties. Some were apparently to the Mossad, the Israeli intelligence service, although the government is saying no, but you had people high up in the Israeli government who attended what you'll soon find out to be his funeral. Okay, so Robert Maxwell was someone Donald Trump knew from the publishing circles, and he certainly appears to have met Ghislaine. Maxwell, after he died, before he died, it turns out he was having a lot of trouble paying back bank loans and so on. And it turns out that there was some shady dealing, maybe some money laundering, maybe a huge ton of embezzlement going on at his business. Not an honest businessman. Okay, so that's Maxwell. What happens next? Okay, we're bringing them closer together. In 1989, the same year, Jeff Epstein's benefactor, Les Wexner, who started Limited Brands in the 60s, and then later, shortly after he buys this, ends up, buying Victoria's Secret or creating it. This is 1989. Wexner buys 9 East 71st Street. This is walking distance from Donald Trump. And I could just show you a picture, but if you can imagine for a second, my phone here being Central Park, right? Or something shaped like this being, here, I can use a Post-it. And I'll draw this. Okay, I think you can see this. I'm not sure. But if you see this Post-it, you've got right over here, if the square in the center is, I'm having trouble, is Central Park. This square here is Central Park. in Manhattan, and the lower X is near Fifth Avenue with Donald Trump. It just probably a little farther, slightly farther south, at around 58th and Fifth. At Fifth Avenue. So Fifth Avenue goes along what I'm showing you here, which is the west side of Central Park. At 59 and Fifth was Trump Tower, which was already built in Donald's home at that time. And then you also have, I'm trying to get this to you, right above, if you go up Fifth Avenue, you will see when you get to 71st Street, and I'm probably too high up, 71st Street is where Jeff Epstein's home was. We're talking not a very long walk. It is walking distance. Okay. Now, Jeff Epstein has always claimed that when he was hanging out there in the mid 90s, he claimed that what Wexner had gifted it to him. The official paperwork didn't necessarily show that right away, but that was his hangout beginning in the mid 90s. So he was there. Okay. And that is not when they apparently met yet. Epstein's there. What happens in 1990? Finally, Ivana and Donald get divorced, right? He was cheating on her in 89 with Marla. He also raped her in 89, which is really awful on its face. But when you understand that Donald Trump was already having an affair with Marla Maples, and he decided to then also rape his wife Ivana because he was mad that his hair plugs hurt, all of this is really unsavory. There are no limits on this man's depravity and attacking others, no empathy. Okay, so what happens then? This is all the 89, in 89, remember, Epstein moves in, or Les Wexner buys the mansion. Epstein's not there yet, right? He doesn't start showing up at Wexner's mansion until later. But what happens in 1990, and this is a huge turning point, is Epstein buys a house in Palm Beach. It's a 4-minute drive to Mar-a-Lago. I mean, it's the same kind of situation that I was showing to you right here with Central Park. They're both in Palm Beach, and it's like 1.5 miles. I think Mar-a-Lago's north of Epstein's place. Doesn't really matter entirely, but they're both on the water. They both have these mansions, 4-minute drive. And this is when, even though Les Wexner had the place in New York, again, Epstein wasn't hanging out there yet. When he meets Donald Trump is right when he buys this place in 1990 in Palm Beach, 4 minutes away, and he becomes part of that circle. Now, this is where I want to tie the money and the trafficking together with Epstein. Epstein spends a few $1,000,000 buying this house in Palm Beach. At that point, he also had huge amounts of money. He had his own private jet, and no one really knew where his money came from. And remember, it was 1976 when he was kicked out of his teaching gig at a private high school in New York, right? 1976. And 14 years later, he's a multimillionaire. That when he began his relationship with managing Les Wexner's money, he said that he was a financial advisor who only managed accounts of $1 billion or more. How do you go from being a college dropout and fired math and science teacher in 14 years to this situation? And I want to say a lot like Donald Trump's business cheating. Now, some people, I don't know, again, if blackmail comes into this then or later, but up until this point, he leaves Dalton. He goes to work for Bear Stearns. He kind of does that for a few years, then kind of gets pushed out or leaves, starts another firm, and there are allegations of impropriety and, let's say, cheating and lying. And there's some real questions about how he got money at that point. And then he goes off on his own. So we're talking about a high school dropout math teacher who's suddenly filthy rich. Epstein, God knows where he gets his money, is when Donald gets into the casino business right around then. Remember, he bankrupted casinos, but the business served his purposes, apparently, or someone's purposes, because all the money laundering. Now, the next year, Donald Trump is involved in this look of the year. He judges for the elite models, John Casablancas. And years later, many girls claimed, women, when they were girls, that they were assaulted. Now, I want to share with you the winner that year was a model named Ingrid Senhave. I've got some clarification with her. She was 17 and won the competition. Then in 1991, this might have been the same event. Donald's taking Ivana to either this or to another event involving models. This is what Ivanka is being exposed to. Then 1991, around the same time, this is how Ghislaine comes into the picture. Robert Maxwell dies, mysterious death. Like they say he fell off his yacht. The story at the time, I mean, he was in a lot of financial trouble at the time. So there were people who wondered, did he disappear? Did he die? But apparently he fell off his yacht and his body washed ashore. The crew said that maybe he often came out on deck at night to pee overboard and that maybe he had just fallen. Who knows? The autopsy showed that he had no real bruises on him, that he had maybe had a heart attack and died of drowning. I don't know. Very suspicious death. Shortly after he dies, Ghislaine is seen with Epstein often, and they were dating and then joined at the hip until he died, essentially. Okay, that's 1990. In 92, this is where there is a video of this. This is 92. Donald Trump was featured in an Entertainment Tonight program, and you can see the screenshot from here. And he looks at a group of young girls who were heading up the escalator and said to them that he would be dating one of them in 10 years. These were girls. He was 46 at the time. These were girls probably 11, 12, 13, or 14. So he was looking at girls at that age and thinking about what they would look like for his sexual purposes, right? Not maybe they make nice wives. It's not what he's talking about. And then, same time, 92, he's hanging out with Jeff Epstein at his own place in Mar-a-Lago. So while Donald Trump has young girls as sex objects in mind, this is him hanging out with Epstein. Just giving you some context. And yes, Marcia Foster, we will talk about his daughter too. So 92. In 93, he's so close to Epstein. So we're talking about he probably met Jeff Epstein in 1990. Could have been him before because Epstein apparently knew Maxwell. But he meets Jeff Epstein, or became friends with Jeff Epstein when he bought this house near Mar-a-Lago, when Epstein did. 3 years later, he's at Marlo's wedding. Very close, right? And I mention this because I know you don't think this, but Donald's like, barely knew the guy. Okay. That same year, Donald Trump, let me just blow this up a little bit. The allegations came out recently. There was a young woman named Stacey Williams, and she claimed that Donald Trump had groped him and groped her in what she described as a twisted game with Jeffrey Epstein. She said, I'm reading this headline, Stacey Williams said the ex-president, whose spokesperson denied the allegations, touched her in an unwanted sexual way in 1993 after Jeff Epstein introduced them. What's weird about this story, when you read it, is that she was, at that time, I think she was already over 18, but the point here was she was dating Epstein, and they introduced him, and then after Trump groped her, apparently Epstein was mad at her. That was a very strange situation. That's 93. In 1994, and we'll get to Katie later this morning, Katie Johnson had the allegations that she revealed for the first time in 2016 that Donald Trump had raped her when she was 13. She was in New York in the summer of that year, and she said they were in Jeff Epstein's mansion, or the place he was staying, which is that same home we talked about on 71st Street. Okay, this is really gross. So that was 94. 2 years later, this is Donald Trump posing with Ivanka in a way that I don't think a father should ever pose with his daughter or touch his daughter. She's 15 and his hands are on her hips. It's really, I find quite disturbing, but again, not illegal. We're just creating context here. Remember, the purpose of this is talking about motive and opportunity, and then looking at any actual, again, public records of evidence. Okay. Same year that he has his hands on Ivanka's hips when she's 15, we have the allegations from Maria Farmer. First of all, by that time, Epstein and Maxwell had sexually assaulted her sister in New Mexico, but she's in New York, and she recalled feeling scared as Mr. Trump stared at her bare legs. I'm not sure if this was she reports him in 96. This may have happened a little bit before, but we have Donald Trump at that time being at Epstein's office late at night, and Epstein's saying, "She's not for you," after Donald Trump eyes her up and down. And then she heard Donald Trump and Jeff Epstein outside of earshot say, "I thought she was 16." So I just want you to be aware that his daughter is 15 at the time. He's looking at someone thinking that she might be for him and 16. That is the implication. Now, this isn't a smoking gun. We're creating context, motive, that this would be something he would be interested in, a girl who is 16. Okay, motive. Didn't have the opportunity then because she wasn't for him. That same year in 96, in the spring, was when Donald Trump raped E. Jean Carroll in the dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman's. And again, I say rape because that's what the Judge Kaplan said, but the technical term under New York law was sexual abuse. Now, what's also happening around that same time with Donald? It's beginning in 1996, around that same time, that he's hanging out with Jeff Epstein late at night, seeing the young girls he's bringing through. Beginning in 1996 and all the way through 2015, Donald Trump got into the beauty pageant business. He owned Miss USA, Miss Teen USA, and Miss Universe. This is a photo from that time frame of him at a Miss Teen USA pageant. So let's just talk about this a little bit. Motive and opportunity to meet, creating opportunities to meet teenage girls. What better way than at a Miss Teen USA pageant? What better way? Moreover, if you own the other pageants like Miss Universe, people are going to want to be nice to you even when they're younger. But we're talking about he owns a contest whose sole objective is to parade and showcase teenage girls based on their exterior qualities, based on a certain presentation of femininity, and objecting them sexually, which is what is happening at these contests. Okay, 96. In 97, there's evidence that Donald Trump is flying on Epstein's private jet from Palm Beach, Florida to New York, New Jersey, of the 1991 look of the year when she was 17. So Donald met her when she was 17, and look, 10 years later, is he dating her? They said they never dated. They're really close in this photo, though. Now, yesterday I made a mistake, and I edited out of this. I mistook that she had been someone Epstein introduced him to. There's a different person, and so I'm letting you know she was not an Epstein victim, and I edited that out of yesterday's show. Okay, so this is someone he'd met 9 years ago when he judged a competition. And I just want to show you, go back to the competition so you can see. There she is at the bottom. I think I'll make this bigger. There she is. She was from Belgium. She became a fashion model. Above are the girls right there. And I'm wondering, it almost looks like is that her on the left with her hair up? It almost looks like it is her next to him based on that dress. So this is the age of the girls, right? Okay, so let's now go. So he's hanging out with her 9 years later. So his comment, "I will date you in 10 years," was actually not a joke. It was a confession, right? Okay, so there we go. What happens next? Well, not surprisingly, Donald and Marla separate and divorce after 1997. And in that same time, we're going to talk about Miss USA. Okay, so not Miss Teen, but Miss USA. We have in 97, Temple Target was a 21-year-old Miss Utah when she participated in the Miss USA contest in 1997. She said Trump, who owned the pageant at the time, kissed her directly on the lips. Assault, right? Now, what's also going on, this is a kind of an unfortunate photo. It's Ivanka in the same year trying to enter into modeling. She is at a haute couture fashion show in 97. She would have been 16. That is the age. What happens the year later? Donald meets Melania. Now, either Epstein introduced them or someone else did, depending on who you believe, but they met around 1998 when she was 28 and he was 52. Kind of disgusting, but common, not considered unlawful or out of the realm of acceptable behavior. I'm just saying that, but he starts dating Melania. Now, she apparently had come to the US in 1995. She claims 1996, brought over by one of these types of modeling agencies, not any of the ones I have mentioned. So there she is. At that time, Donald's oldest child, Don Jr., was in his 20s as well, probably around 21 or 22 when he started dating Melania, who was 28. Now, to make this clear, he has this model who he is dating, and they dated kind of on and off, but they finally, we know, get married. In 1999, in the same era, Jeff Epstein gives money to this Jean-Luc Brunel to found a modeling agency called MC2 Models. He apparently, his agency was doing some bad things in England, a different one that he'd started. So they did this. Now, what was the purpose of this? It was not to, I mean, I just want to, as someone who grew up in this time frame, and anyone, if you think about these reality shows about modeling is a ticket young girls see to independence, to a job. They think they'll be in teen magazine. Back then, magazines were a big deal in movies. And so this is what the young girls think when they go to New York. And I had a friend from high school who spent a summer, I think through an Eileen Ford situation. And let me just say this. I remember my mother telling me that she'd heard that when young girls went to New York over the summer as teenagers, as 16 or 17-year-old, their mothers would put them on the pill, on the birth control pill, because part of what they were doing was socializing with older men, maybe for the purpose of just dating them or getting married off. But it was well known. It was something my mother, who did not talk about these things, told me. Okay, so at that time, 1999, he forms this agency. And what it turns out, this is an article, I think, from the Daily Beast. I have the writer here. Perhaps most disturbing in terms of possible sex trafficking was Epstein's relationship with Jean-Luc Brunel, owner of the MC2 modeling agency. According to a complaint filed with the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Florida, an alleged victim said that Epstein, Maxwell, Brunel, Rodriguez, and Marchikova deliberately engaged in a pattern of racketeering that involved luring minor children through this agency, mostly girls under the age of 17, to engage in sexual play for money. That is a quote. And as she says, this would amount to trafficking. Who was he doing that for? I think you know, for Epstein. This is a picture of Ghislaine Maxwell, Jeff Epstein, and Jean-Luc Brunel on his plane, and it says U.S. Attorney's Office in the corner. Dutch former model Thesa Huisman, who has said Brunel drugged and raped her when she was 18, told the BBC it was frustrating that his alleged victims would never have their day in court. This is because, as I told you, he dies later. And basically, the whole point here is that he was procuring girls from Eastern Europe, promising them modeling gigs under the age of 18, and feeding them essentially to Jeff Epstein. Okay, so that is why this gets us to this. This happens right in, just to be clear, we're talking about 1999 when Epstein starts his own modeling agency. By the way, Donald Trump started Trump Models at the same time. So let me just share this with you because we talked about this yesterday. Michael Wolff is talking about this now, but this came out years ago. And here, Michael Wolff, so here's the headline. Epstein showed me photos of Trump with topless young women sitting in his lap, claims author. Right? He said that this happened in the late 90s. He wasn't sure exactly when. So that's why I put it right there, maybe around 1999. He said they were with Trump at Epstein's Palm Beach house, sitting around the pool with these young girls, and the young girls are topless. And this is a quote. And in some of the pictures, they're sitting in his lap. This is Wolf saying this. I mean, and then there's one I especially remember where there's a stain, a telltale stain, and on the front of Trump's pants, and the girls are pointing at him and laughing. This is around 99, right? Okay, so he's hanging out with these young girls who probably came from this Jean-Luc Brunel agency. And because he'd had an agency before, but he just transferred that to a U.S. company, right? So he might have been even working with Epstein for prior to that. 1999, Donald starts his own modeling agency to be just like Jeff, who has his agency. I'm not saying Donald's agency was used to procure young girls for him. I'm just saying they both had modeling agencies. And this is Donald Trump at a Victoria's Secret fashion show with Jeff Epstein. Okay, now this is a great piece from USA Today to talk about who these people were. And this is a quote from an author, Michael Gross, not Michael Wolff. He wrote a book called Model. He's an expert in the modeling field. Okay. Trump and Epstein were, quote, representative of a type that has nibbled at the edges of the modeling business. If you're in the market for women as sex toys, a higher echelon of that is models. What he's saying is there are street prostitutes, there are call girls, and then there are models. He's actually saying they are by definition beautiful women. They are also beautiful young women, Gross says. You can go from there. He's kind of drawing a connection. Okay, so this is February 12th of 2000. And this is them all together. So now Donald has known Epstein for at least since 1990. And they're hanging out together at Mar-a-Lago. Donald, Melania, Jeff, and Ghislaine. What happens a year later? We have, let me just blow this up. Former Miss Arizona, Tasha Dixon, says Trump walked into a dress rehearsal for a pageant in 2001. Right? So he's really, again, motive, opportunity, and this is a sexual assault here. While the contestants were half naked, wasn't an assault. He was being creepy, half naked, and the women were told to fawn all over him. Dixon, who says she was 18 at the time, said Trump came strolling right in during a dress rehearsal for the Miss USA pageant in 2001. She said it was the contestants' introduction to Trump, first introduction, and that they were half naked or naked, and it was very physically vulnerable. So he was doing that, and he talked about doing this on the Howard Stern show. Okay, now we have 2002, and this is, again, we're putting the pieces together. This is the article, the feature about Donald Trump in New York Magazine. Sorry, let me just, where the question is, I'm sorry, about Jeffrey Epstein. Jeffrey Epstein, International Money Man of Mystery. This is from 2002. And this is where Donald Trump is quoted as saying, I've known Jeff for 15 years. Terrific guy. He said he's a lot of fun to be with. It's even said that he likes beautiful women as much as I do. And many of them are on the younger side. No doubt about it. Jeffrey enjoys his social life. It's 92. Jeff Epstein has owned this modeling agency for 3 years, during which he is going through hundreds and eventually thousands of girls, at least 1,000 girls, through being recruited from Eastern Europe who are underage and so on. So this is what the allegations are, right? I don't know how many were under the age of 18, but that was the goal. So now that you heard all of that before, and you hear Donald saying this, it has more context. I realize we're getting to the end of the show. We're going to go about a little over 15 minutes maybe, because I want to get to the legal piece of this. Okay. So this is happening in 2002. In 2003 through 19, this is what's come out through now the filed suspicious activities reports, that the single largest suspicious activity report reviewed by the congressional team, right? We have Ron Wyden doing this, was filed in 2019 by JP Morgan for $1.1 billion. It covered 4,700 transactions that dated back to 2003, right? That era. And it said, including payments to women from Belarus, Russia, and Turkmenistan. Many of Epstein's victims included young women from Eastern European countries. Okay. There's also money coming in, $400 million, including payments from very wealthy men like Leon Black. So when you put this together, I just want to put this together. Donald Trump knows Jeffrey socializes with so-called young women on the younger side. Jeffrey has hundreds of girls by that time coming in to his various locations, including Palm Beach, sitting around the pool, according to Michael Wolff, topless and engaging in sex acts with Donald Trump, according to Michael Wolff. That's the implication from the photos. Where there's smoke, there's fire. So we're seeing, if that's true, a really big problem and evidence that Donald Trump was in a secret team with Epstein, preying on and raping children. That's like a fact. If all of this is true, but we don't know if it is true, right? We're just putting these pieces together. And then you have the money transfers, follow the money. Now, I want to add the next thing. The next thing in 2003, when we have Maxwell has letters. This is Ghislaine Maxwell does the birthday party. And again, this is where Donald Trump says, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday. And may every day be another wonderful secret. So all is good at that time, right? We do know that there was a problem, I guess, in his view. I didn't put it on here in 2000. I should probably go back to that. Remember, in 2000 was, let's just put this here, in 2000, right around this time period, was right when he's in the dressing, when he's in the dressing room, ogling young girls. That's around the time he was mad that Jeff Epstein stole, right? That Jeff Epstein stole her. That Jeff Epstein stole Virginia Roberts. Okay, so that is around that time. Okay, but what happens next? Great birthday. What happens next is they get in a fight over a piece of property, not a human, but a piece of real estate, driving up the price. And this was the end. What do we know then? Donald is done with Epstein. He's got a new pal, Mark Burnett. He launches The Apprentice. Trying, again, all about cheating and lies, that show. Then he gets married to Melania. Does he stay faithful to her? No, but then he launches his fake university. Again, cheating and lies. Wasn't a real university. It was a Ponzi scheme. People lost their life savings. He ends up having to settle a racketeering case for that. also at that time still married to Melania, and he's now talking about when caught on tape saying that when you're a star, you can grab women by the pussy and they let you. So we know he's admitted to sexual assault. We also know later he's found guilty of libel for the equivalent of rape. The only question we have, right? We're at the point where the only question we have isn't whether Donald Trump repeatedly raped and sexually abused people, because we have lots of witnesses who testified under oath, and I believe them. The only question is, were any of them under the age of 18? And my answer is, why wouldn't they be? But we don't have specific allegations of that yet, right? We do have, again, now in 2005, his behavior continues. Teen beauty queen says Donald walked in on them changing when they were as young as 15. We have that. Then we have, again, motive and opportunity. Donald Trump's now third wife is pregnant. And so this is when he sexually assaults Natasha Stronyoff, right? She testified to E. Jean Carroll's trial under oath. Now, she was not under 18. Then we have Donald Trump doesn't have Epstein anymore. I don't know what's going on with his modeling agencies, but now he is dating Playboy models and adult film stars, right? Then we get in 2006, again, more context. Donald Trump saying his lower age limit is age 12. Maybe he was joking, but the implication when he is asked is that 18 was not his limit. He could have said that. He could have said, listen, she has to be 18. Nope. 12 was the number he threw out. Then we have, this is an important addition. You have not seen this. Then we have in 2006, around the same time, someone who was Miss Finland in 2006 competed in Donald Trump's Miss Universe contest. He told a Finnish newspaper that Donald Trump squeezed her rear end after posing for a photo before an appearance on the Letterman show. She said, Trump stood right next to me and suddenly he squeezed my butt. He really grabbed my butt. Now, that is okay. You may say, so what? Compared to everything else. This is the context. It's that whenever he has an opportunity, this is how he treats women. And then, of course, Summer Zervos on The Apprentice. Just to blow this one up, that was in 2007. Remember, she ended up having to settle that case. It's complicated, but she claimed that he had also groped and kissed her several times, including in a California hotel, and she didn't report them. Instance at the time, she said, he grabbed my shoulders and began kissing me again aggressively and placed his hand on my breast. This is what he does, sexually assaults women. Again, I believe these women. The only question is how young. Okay, what do we have next? 2008. This Epstein has a comeuppance. He pleads guilty to the state charges. This is one count of soliciting prostitution, one count of in a count of soliciting prostitution someone under the age of 18. It's an insult to Virginia Roberts and Joffrey and to all girls to call them prostitutes when they are children being trafficked. It's an insult, and they let him plead to this. And the U.S. Attorney's Office, this is the feds, you know this because of Acosta, they agreed not to prosecute him for any federal crimes. And he served his sentence through what was called a work release program, so he could leave jail during the day to go to his office. So this is true, right? So he had served his sentence from 2008 to 2009. It was 13 months, but it was work release, and he was out during the day. He only had to sleep there at night and maybe one weekend day. That's true. He gets out of prison in 2009. And in that era, and as soon as he's out, we had these people, these young women, multiple women who then bring civil lawsuits against him. And also who were fighting from that time period to try to disqualify this federal non-prosecution agreement he and others, we don't know their names, entered into. They weren't consulted. They didn't think it was okay. And at that point, we have Virginia Roberts Giuffre is coming out now, making her allegations right after he gets out of prison for the first time. Despite that, he continues offending. And then, as we know, in 2019, in July, he was arrested on federal sex trafficking charges in New York. This is after the prosecutors in New York decided they were not bound by the Florida agreement. And if you look also, I think the time frame for him, though, was for that earlier time period, kind of going through, I think, 2004 or 5. So as we know, that was July 6th. On August 10th, he was found dead in his cell. I want to add something here. I may have repeated this, and I want to make clear this isn't true. No, Bill Barr did not visit Epstein in prison. So that did not happen. That has been Snopes or fact-checked. But we don't know who did. Now, what about Ghislaine Maxwell, right? We know with her what happened next. She's been sentenced to 20 years. And now we also know, you saw this video last show in 2020 when Donald Trump, when Ghislaine had been, before her trial, he suggested that Jeff Epstein might have been killed in prison and wished Ghislaine Maxwell well, repeatedly saying, well, her boyfriend, I think, died or committed suicide. I wish her well, almost as if I hope that doesn't happen to you. Then in 2022, Jean-Luc Brunel commits suicide. This is the man who had also links to Jeff Epstein. Okay. That is kind of what we are steeped in. And I know that some of you have to go, but if you can always watch the end of this later. And I don't think we'll save Crazy Town for tomorrow. We'll just focus on this legal stuff. You have that backdrop. So again, based on court cases, based on Donald Trump's own statements that he hasn't denied, even under oath at a deposition, he says for better or for worse, he agrees with the Access Hollywood tape that when you're a star, they let you. Donald Trump has admitted that he feels entitled to and that he has sexually assaulted women. He's admitted that. He's been adjudicated as the equivalent of a rapist. We know that he cheats and lies all the time. We know that he was very close friends with Epstein, had some kind of secret with him, and that he had, was often walking in on young teenage pageant goers. So we have all of this. We know that Donald Trump is a repeated sexual offender, according to these allegations that we have here. The only question is how young. And if you now say, okay, what do we need now besides this kind of context? And besides his saying things, I'm going to date her in 10 years, looking at young girls that way, besides his, that we have a piece of evidence that we have not seen that must be, unless it was destroyed, that when the FBI raided Epstein's house in 2019, that photo was probably in the safe. We need to know, because that photo is a smoking gun. We could know who those girls were. These victims could be asked. They have not asked any victims. Have you seen anyone in the Department of Justice saying, if you were a girl from Eastern Europe and you spent time with Donald Trump, people didn't even for sure know that's who he was at that time. At any rate, if that photo really exists and it was accurate, then we actually know how young. We know how young. The next thing, though, and this is the last thing, we're going to open tomorrow's show with this, but I'm going to start with you here, and I want to share with you, because this has the allegations that, if true, according to this woman, she was raped by Trump when she was 13. Now, I don't know if it's true. I can read it to you because it was I can share it with you because it was filed in a court of law. Oops, sorry. I'm just trying to, let me pull this up. Okay, let me pull the screen up. Let me share it. Sorry about that. No, it doesn't want me to do that. I've got a situation where, oh my gosh. Okay, what I can do is I can't share it because of the way this new screen things works. But I think I can find it this way again, because I saved it as a PDF. And when I do that, it won't let me share that. But I got it. Great. I got it for you. Yep. I've got to share the live link for you. And then okay. And then I can also share the link in the chat. Sorry, guys. Here we go. Screen share. Fine. And I'm gonna share this with you. It was in Politico where they put it up. So I'm gonna drop this here. Now this is, I think that should work for you. Okay, great. So let me just blow this up a little. Oops, no. Full screen. Okay, so here we have, and I hope this is big enough. Make it a little bit bigger. Yes, I think this should be full screen for you or not. Okay, so what we are looking at here is a complaint. This is a case that was filed, and this is in September of 2016. She dismissed this. There was a voluntary dismissal of the case. This young woman who goes by the pseudonym Katie Johnson apparently was too afraid to speak at a press conference with Lisa Bloom. I have reached out to, Lisa Bloom is Gloria Allred's daughter and has represented many victims of sexual assault. I reached out to her office to see if I can get her to comment about this. Okay, so let's just go through the basics here, and then we'll pick up tomorrow with the legal analysis and a real show. Okay, so we have this. She was Jane Doe, but she also goes by the pseudonym Katie Johnson. And she brought this lawsuit against Donald Trump and Jeff Epstein. And the complaint is titled for rape, sexual misconduct, criminal sexual acts, sexual abuse, forcible touching, battery, and so on. Okay, and in false imprisonment. So what the key thing here is, I want to read to you that plaintiff was enticed by promises of money and a modeling career to attend a series of parties with other similarly situated minor females held at a New York City residence that was being used by defendant Jeffrey Epstein. Now, I just want to poke my head in here. That sounds credible when we hear about the Eastern European model who's under the age of 18 to target of Epstein's sex trafficking, right? When you know that, this starts to make more sense. Okay, just going to read part of this. And again, I promise I will be done in about a few minutes, okay? So, at least 4 of the parties were attended by defendant Trump. And she has exhibits A and B, which are affidavits, sworn statements from people who are witnesses. On information and belief, by this time in 1994, defendant Trump had known defendant Epstein for 7 years. She's basing that on him saying, I've known Epstein for 15 years. He's a terrific guy in 2002. We know that they'd been friends at least since 1990. Trump booms from a speakerphone. Oh, so this is the quote. I knew he, that he likes beautiful women, and many of them are on the younger side, no doubt it. She says that Donald Trump knew that plaintiff was then just 13 years old. Defendant Trump initiated sexual contact with plaintiff at 4 different parties. On the 4th and final sexual encounter with defendant Trump tied plaintiff to a bed, exposed himself to plaintiff, and then proceeded to forcibly rape plaintiff. During the course of this savage sexual attack, plaintiff loudly pleaded with Donald Trump to stop, but with no effect. Trump responded to plaintiff's pleas by violently striking plaintiff in the face with his open hand and screaming that he would do whatever he wanted. And then we have some exhibits of affidavits. Immediately following this rape, defendant Trump threatened plaintiff that were she ever to reveal any of the details of this abuse, she or her family would be harmed or killed. And then Epstein had sexual contact with her at 2 different parties. The second was after she had been raped by Donald Trump, and then he raped her after that. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing this. These are the allegations, and they're really hard to hear. I'm not saying whether they're true. I'm saying someone bothered to make these claims. Context. Tomorrow, we're going to start with the legal. I'm not going to go through this timeline again. We're just going to jump into what the legal issues are. I promise that. Sorry things went over, but I felt like I needed you to have as much context as possible. Tomorrow, we will give an update on the craziness in the Trump administration, anything else important in legal news, law, money, and power, but we will make sure to start the show with the statutes that would apply. Thank you for your time, and I will see you bright and early in the morning.
Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show. Hello, prison mates. It's the Jen Taub Show. Well, welcome everyone. Let's learn about what is happening in politics yesterday and today. There is hope, and we are together in this democracy we work for. And again, welcome to the Jen Taub Show.